I'm going to do a little short video on Lake Pontchartrain. I'm going to take some clips from some of Soundly's videos, and I'm going to show that it's complete pseudo perspective. It's caused by extreme compression from extreme zoom.
No, zoom through a telescope.
Or a telescope, yeah. I mean, I thought it was the theodolite, but yeah, there's a couple of them through a theodolite with the little lenses by you.
Pictures.
Yeah,
and
those are
changes. It changes a lot of how much curve you're going to see when you zoom it like that.
Absolutely. I mean, you can tell right here, just looking at these huts, they start getting closer together just on hut number 4 right here.
Why do they appear to be getting closer? It's called foreshortening effect. It's when your angle to a surface becomes more and more narrow in the distance, so the visual information is compressed into increasingly smaller space in the observer's field of view. That's why, even though those are equal distance, because of the angle, it's like looking at the top of a building from the bottom. You know, the information at the top, you can't tell how many stories there are if it's a really tall high-rise, because all that information is foreshortened into too small of a space for you to identify them all. So it's the same thing with this.
So that's what perspective does. You know, the distance between objects gets shorter and shorter and shorter further away they are, just due to perspective.
Compression.
And which results in this.
Now I want you
and you know, a lot of people were asking.
I want you guys to notice a few things on here first. First of all, know the extreme humps. And you're going to hear him talk about it a little bit. Now, he's going to call it perspective, but it's not. You don't see things like that at all. Perspective doesn't compress something to the point where it makes it look like you're going up the Matterhorn. And by the way, look at the cars. Look at the cars on the bridge. The cars coming towards you are look like they're slightly sideways. The front end is to the left, or to its right. And the same with the cars going away. Their front end looks like it's going off towards the right a little bit. It's like sidewinding or drifting. Drifting is when the cars are going around the curves on the racetrack, just in case some of you don't know. And then also notice the foreshortening in here with those little huts or whatever they are on the left side of the bridge. They're getting closer and closer together, and the natural slant that normally would take place with natural perspective becomes all screwed up because of the extreme zoom compression, just like those humps are extreme. So is the horizon in this, because it's affecting everything that's viewed in this picture. So anyhow, I was saying about the huts. Look how they get closer and closer together in the distance because of the angle, and they're compressed closer and closer to each other, which takes away the natural slant that you would see with natural perspective. Instead, it makes it, because it pushes them up close to each other, it makes it look like a curve because of the extreme compression of extreme zoom. So anyhow, I've got more than one little bit of evidence in this little short clip. The extreme humps at the marine span, and these other ones I'm not sure what they are. But you're going to hear Soundly talk about them here in a minute. And the cars drifting sideways. And I'll show you another clip of one of his videos that really shows it.
Asking me kindly for context, but there were also, of course, the naysayers that were saying it's too curved, which is ridiculous whenever you look at Walter's models, which predict this observation.
Well, it is too curved.
But there's also the naysayers that say
it is too curved. Because if that's from curvature of Earth, we live on a tiny little ball. I mean tiny. Look at that. You know something's wrong here. This is not natural perspective.
fake, which can be discounted right off because you can simply go to the Marriott and take this picture. And you know, it really is something that
you can't just take the picture. You need a telescope, and you have to get the right angles to the bridge, a little bit higher and offset to the side somewhat, so you'll get that foreshortening you see at the far end that he was showing you earlier. You're going to get all those effects, and he knows it. And I think he figured it out, because I think that's why you don't hear of him anymore.
unless you look at it a lot, it's foreign the first time you see something at that high of a magnification and see perspective playing on the curve.
Extreme zoom is not perspective. It's pseudo perspective.
But I mean, that's reality. And another thing I want to point out is a lot of people talk about lens compression. It's misnamed. I don't know why anybody ever started referring to it as lens compression, because it has nothing to do with the lens. It's perspective compression.
Did you hear that? It's perspective compression. How many times have I talked about perspective compression? And all the globies get in the chats and say, I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm making stuff up. It's perspective compression, and this is extreme perspective compression, or pseudo compression perspective.
That is really what it is. You're looking at compression due to perspective, and the lens just magnifies.
Foreshortening and compression are part of natural viewing, but this is never what you'd see. This is only a function of extreme zoom.
Is it enough for you to be able to photograph it and see it? And you can see the same thing through a rifle scope, really.
Absolutely. To just wrap your head around that whole thing, when you're driving on that, each one of those signs is a tenth of a mile apart. Those little tiny signs to the side of the road, that's a tenth of a mile.
Yep.
And when you're driving over that thing that looks like a huge hill in the middle,
Right.
that's a gentle rise and a gentle fall while you're driving on it.
Right.
You heard him. A gentle rise and a gentle fall. They're not little Matterhorns. Silly globies.
Because I've driven on that causeway before on the way down to Florida from Colorado.
Yep. For sure. It definitely looks compressed because of perspective, but like you said.
Yes, perspective compresses, but this is extreme compression from extreme zoom. It's pseudo perspective.
Like David said, this is not that steep. It's not a roller coaster ride whenever you're driving across it, which is what it kind of looks like in this picture.
Looks even more so when you look at some of your time-lapse videos.
Oh, yeah, exactly. When the cars are driving over the top of it.
Wow, I don't know. I really like this Walter Bislin thing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just fiddling with it. This is really cool.
Let me see.
Okay, here's another clip from one of Salmi's videos. It's called Pushing Up Daisies. This is like 18 or 19 seconds in. It's a little video, but it's going to show how this extreme pseudo perspective of the extreme zoom has these cars driving sideways. Now this is what it really looks like in real life. It's not zoomed in. It's just a normal picture. You see normal perspective. You're going to see how the bridge seems to merge in. It's kind of like railroad tracks, right? It's merging in. The side to sides on the bridges are getting smaller and smaller. And they're just reaching a point where the foreshortening will no longer allow you to resolve any detail past that point. You know, the thing we call the vanishing zone. That globies like FTFE like to tell me is just perspective, and it's not real. It's just a made-up term. This is reality. Sound these videos are not reality. It's very simple.